Today's lesson will focus on how to use a compass. Oftentimes when you're going outdoors, you hear to carry a map and a compass. It's an important tool for survival. Today we'll focus on how to use a compass, why it's important to use a compass, and how can we better use it to support our time outdoors. First, we'll start with the function. What is a compass for? So a compass helps us to find the directions, but we don't always need to use a compass. It can help us if it's foggy, if it's dark outside, if we're in a forest with tall trees, or if we were to make a navigation across the open ocean where there's not a lot of landmarks to look at to figure out our direction. You might have seen a compass being used in your everyday life because a lot of cars have the compass right at the front near the rear view mirror. And we'll focus on today when and how we can use a compass to best support us in our lives, in our activities, and just give us the confidence in using it. So the compass will help tell the directions of north, south, east, and west, and we'll get started with some of the terms and some of the pieces to get to know our compass a little bit better. So our compass is for reading directions. We'll get started by noticing that we have north, south, east, and west identified here on what's called the bezel, but the turning part of the compass. The next part that we'll call your attention to is the base plate, which is this clear plate here. It's allowing us to look through it. If there was a map underneath, you'd be able to see it clearly. The next part is the straight edge. This is the straight edge for bearings, again helping us to measure more clearly the distance on the map if we're using it to look at a map. This arrow right here is the direction arrow, which is where you want to go. So this arrow will point you in the direction of where you're headed. And the next part you'll notice is on the bezel, you'll notice that there's the 360 degrees indicated in a circle going clockwise around. We'll go ahead and you can turn the bezel there. The index line is the little dot at the top that's used for reading to notice the direction. The next part you'll notice is the magnetized needle. There's both the red side and here we have the black side. The red side, for the sake of our activity, we'll call that Fred, and Fred is the direction arrow that will be pointing north. The area on the side, the orienting arrow, which is the outlined red spot here, in our exercise today, we're going to call that Fred shed. So when we're directing ourselves figuring out north, the red part, Fred, we're going to try to align with the shed, the outline arrow, and then the directional arrow will be showing us the direction that we're aiming. So red, Fred, the black part there, not Fred, and then the outlined arrow is the orienting arrow, getting the northward arrow, the red, the Fred, in the shed. Next, we'll come to the attention of the three different norths. First, we have true north. True north is the North Pole, the northernmost part of our globe, which is where you'd consider Santa's workshop, the North Pole, the top of the earth, if you think of it like that. That is what's called true north. The next one is magnetic north, which is always in flux, always changing throughout time. Magnetic north is a slight shift away from the North Pole. Currently, I believe it's somewhere around northern Canada area, but it tends to move, and right now it's actually moving a little bit more rapidly than other parts of history. Grid north is the north lines on a map. If you're looking at the map and you see the lines representing the longitude lines, this is what grid north is. So we'll talk about what the difference is in what north we're looking for when we're using our compass for direction. Magnetic north governs the direction that our compass moves. The direction of north of the compass is orienting with the magnetic field of the earth. Magnetic north is also used in your cell phones to help put the location services so you know where you are in the globe. If we didn't have the magnetic lines of the earth, we would have an issue kind of figuring out where we were on our phone maps. It also governs for the satellites, as well as it's used in military technology. So there's a lot of reasons that the magnetic field of the earth, the magnetic lines, are really important in our ability to use this magnetic north to find our sense of direction, and it's what makes our compass work. It's important to mention when we're talking about compasses is declination. Declination is the angle difference between the true north, what we were saying, which is like the North Pole, Santa's workshop, and the magnetic north. So depending on where we are on the globe, this angle will be different, and it's important to account for, especially if you're traveling a large difference, because they can make the difference of going to, one state or one country or another state or another country, because over time this difference in the angle will add us to be slightly or significantly off from our mark of where we're going. So right here where we are today, I'm on the central coast of California. Our degrees that we are, the declination angle between true north and magnetic north is 4.95 negative degrees. So if we were to use our compass for directions, which we'll talk about how to do in just a moment, the adjustment would be a negative 4.95 degrees, which is not a significant angle off. So for the sake of today, for the sake of our exercise, we'll remember declination, we'll remember how to use declination, but we'll use another lesson to talk about how to calculate declination on your compass if you're using that for distance travel. We'll get started with our activity. First, figuring out we have north, south, east, and west compass. We'll use that to do our first activity and then get into our second activity. I'll show you here, and then I'll show you a little bit closer up what that looks like. If I want to be aiming in the direction of north, first what I do is put the north arrow as the direction arrow, the direction of travel. And then I spin my body until Fred, the red arrow, is in the shed. To point in that direction. From here, this direction here, we're looking north. Now, using that, what we're going to do is you're going to take 3 steps in each direction. So first, turning the arrow to the north, I'll take 3 steps. Now, changing the direction to south. So I align the direction arrow to south, put the red arrow, Fred, in the shed, make 3 steps to the south. Perfect. Now east, I put east as my direction of travel. Turn the red arrow to the shed, Fred to the shed, right here. 1, 2, 3. And then put west. So I'm here on the west coast, so as I go in the direction west, I'll be walking towards the Pacific Ocean, even though it's only 3 steps. So 3 steps, 1, 2, 3. The ocean, somewhere out there. Beautiful. So I'll show you what that looks like a little bit closer up, and you can go ahead and use your compass if you have a compass like this, or you can use the compass if you have a smartphone. There's usually a compass feature. You can use that and take 3 steps north, 3 steps south, 3 steps east, and then 3 steps west. Depending where you are, the west, you might be walking towards the ocean. The next part of this activity, all you need is a blank piece of paper and a pen. What you're going to do is you're going to draw in the center of this paper your home or your school. On the bottom corner, the right corner, you'll draw the compass facing north, south, east, and west to each side. And in those directions, you'll draw something on a map or something that you visually know or spatially know is north of your school or home, south, to the east, and to the west of. So for example, as I mentioned here, on the west coast, draw my home in the middle, and I'm very close to the ocean, so I might draw the Pacific Ocean to the west of my home. So you can look at a map, you can look at a paper map, or you can look at a map from the internet to help get an idea about maybe cities or landmarks or familiar places, maybe a family member's house or a friend's house, to locate that on your map. So we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll show you my example.
I've drawn here on the map. In the center is my home, basic sketch of what my home looks like. On the north, I drew my favorite forest to explore a little bit north of here in California. South is desert that I like to explore and travel to sometimes. To the east is my mom and dad's home, east on the map, and on the west is the Pacific Ocean, and that's my attempt at drawing seagulls. But go ahead in your own paper, go ahead and draw your house and things that are in each of these directions in relative to your home or your school. Now here with our map of California, we're going to look at using our compass to orient this map facing in the direction of these actual real locations. So here is our example. These lines are what's called grid north, and we have our compass here using magnetic north. Go ahead and get started by placing the directional north arrow in the direction of travel, and then getting Fred in his shed. But knowing that this map is not completely oriented the right way, we're gonna go ahead and flip it around. Aligning the compass lines on the inside here of the bezel with the grid north lines to help orient the map. So here we have our direction of travel, orient the lines. So now our map is facing north, and this could actually help us navigate to these locations if we were going to be traveling there.